Lily found them behind the orphanage's garbage bins on a night when the rain came down. Like it was angry at the world. She'd gone out because her stomach hurt too much to sleep. The thin blanket the orphanage gave each child did nothing against the chill that seeped through the cracked windows and stone walls. And hunger only made the cold worse. She tucked the stale dinner roll she'd saved under her shirt, close to her skin to keep it dry. That roll was her secret plan. A bite now, a bite later, a last bite in the darkest part of the night, when the gnawing in her belly got unbearable. The yard behind the orphanage smelled like sour milk and old cabbage. The garbage bins loomed like crooked sentries, metal sides streaked black with rust. Lily hunched her shoulders against the rain and moved toward her favorite hiding nook, where the wall met the back fence. It wasn't much, but if she curled up just right, she could pretend there was no one else in the world but her and they. Quiet. She wasn't alone. The sound reached her first, thin, pitiful whimpers, so soft they barely rose above the hiss of rain. She froze. The orphanage had rats, sometimes stray dogs, once even a wild cat that had terrified Mistress Grill until the wardens drove it off with poles. These cries were different, too small, too desperate. "Hello," Lily whispered, though she knew it was foolish to talk to the shadows. Lightning ripped across the sky, turning the world into a black and white sketch for the briefest moment. What she saw in that white flash was not fur, two small shapes huddled behind the bins. Pressed so tightly together they almost looked like a single creature. Scales gleamed along their backs, not smooth and polished like the storybooks showed, but grimy and dulled with mud. Tiny horns curled from their heads where ears should have been. Wings, folded so tight they seemed too small to ever lift anything as big as a body, trembled with every shiver. Lily's blood ran cold. Dragons. Not full-grown nothing like the enormous shapes that sometimes crossed the distant sky, leaving trails of light like falling stars, but not newborns either. Hatchlings, maybe 3 months old, she guessed, old enough to have teeth, big ones. She edged a step back, her heart thudding so loudly she was sure they could hear it. Everyone knew the rules. Dragons were dangerous, beautiful and ancient, and protected by royal decree. Yes, but still dangerous. You saw one. You reported it to the wardens. You didn't talk to them. You certainly didn't touch them. One of the cubs lifted its head. Two golden eyes locked with hers, bright even in the gloomy yard. The pupils were narrow slits, but there was nothing cold in them. Only hunger, only fear, only the same hollow ache Lily felt gnawing at her own insides. The whimpering grew louder. She'd been hungry enough times to recognize the sound, the little broken breath of someone who hadn't eaten properly in days. Lily looked down at the roll hidden under her shirt. It was small, no bigger than her palm. Mistress Grill said the portions were generous, that the children should be grateful, that people in the city had it worse. Lily didn't think that was true, but arguing hadn't brought her parents back or filled her stomach. Her fingers tightened round the bread. She had already planned the tiny bites, the way she would stretch them. It was all she had. Another whimper broke through the rain. Lily's feet moved before she decided anything. She crouched slowly, trying not to startle them, and broke the dinner roll in half. The pieces were uneven. Her hands shook too much to make a clean split, but she held them out anyway. One piece in each dirty palm. "It's okay," she whispered. "I don't want to hurt you." The cubs stared, eyes wide and unblinking. Then the bolder one crept forward, belly low to the muddy ground. It sniffed her hand, hot breath washing over her skin, then snatched the bread with astonishing speed. The second cub followed a heartbeat later. They devoured the food in seconds, crumbs flying, jaws working with frantic urgency. When the last crumb vanished, both sets of golden eyes lifted to Lily again. There was no magic glow, no dramatic music, just two little dragon faces staring at her with absolute, desperate hope. "That's all I have," Lily said, voice cracking. I'm sorry." They gave small, questioning chirps, as if asking if she was sure. She was sure, and yet, walking away felt like a different kind of hunger, deeper and sharper. She wrapped her arms around herself and stumbled back toward the orphanage, stomach aching, throat tight. That night, she dreamed of dragons starving. In the dark, the next evening, when the dinner bell rang, Lily stared at the bowl of thin stew and the roll beside it. The other children ate quickly, eyes on their own portions, hands ready to shield their food from thieves. No one noticed when Lily tucked her roll into her shirt again and pretended to lick her fingers like she'd finished Mistress Grill's. Sharp eyes swept the room but passed over her. Lily had learned how to look full even when she was empty, outside, behind the garbage bins. The cubs were waiting. This time, they recognized her footsteps. Their heads popped up in unison, wings rustling, eyes lighting with recognition and joy. The first cub made a low churring sound that Lily decided meant her name. She smiled despite the rain and held out the bread. After that, it became a ritual for 6 nights. Lily went to bed with nothing in her stomach but water and sheer stubbornness. For 6 nights, the dragon cubs grew stronger in their damp hiding place behind the bins. Their scales started to shine through the grime. Their movements steadied. Their cries softened from weak whimpers to playful chirps whenever she arrived. She named them in her head, though she never dared speak the names aloud, as if it might make them to reel and call the wardens down on them. The quieter one with the darker scales she called Ash. The bolder one with a faint golden sheen became Ember. Ember liked to nuzzle her hands after eating, hot scales pressing against her chilled fingers. Ash would sit close, watching Lily's face with unerring intensity, like he was memorizing her features. Once, when she was too dizzy from hunger to stand up right away, they both tucked themselves against her legs, sharing their warmth. Lily buried her face in her hands and tried not to cry. On the 7th day, they were gone. The space behind the bins was empty. No scales, no wings, no tiny claw prints in the mud. Only a faint smell of smoke and something bright and clean, like sunshine on stone. Lily sat down hard, the breath leaving her lungs in a small, stunned gasp. She told herself it was good. They must have gotten strong enough to fly. Maybe their family had found them. Maybe they were high above the clouds now, swooping through the sky the way dragons were meant to. It was fine. It was what she'd wanted. So why did her chest feel hollow? Why did it feel like the day she'd arrived at the orphanage with a small bag of clothes and no parents? And Mistress Grill had told her briskly to stop crying because tears didn't change anything. She swallowed hard and pressed her palm to the rough stone wall. "Be safe," she whispered to no one. "Please." The ache in her belly had become a constant, gnawing pain. She'd given away too many meals. When the other children jostled her in the hallway, she almost fell. Her vision swam sometimes when she stood up too quickly. Maybe, she thought as she lay awake that night, she would ask for more food. Mistress Grill would say no. But maybe Lily would ask anyway. Just this once. She never got the chance. The next day, the sky went dark at noon. It happened too fast for anyone to understand. One moment, sunlight streamed through the high, dirty windows of the classroom. The next, shadows swallowed everything, as if someone had thrown a blanket over the sun. Children screamed. Chairs scraped. Mistress Grill stormed toward the windows, shouting for order. But even she fell silent when she looked outside. Above the orphanage, the sky was full of dragons. They circled in layer upon layer. Hundreds of them, their bodies a living storm. Scarlet, sapphire, emerald, obsidian. Colors that had no names Lily knew iridescent, shimmering, flickering with inner fire. Wings blotted out the sun. Tails coiled like comets. Some were slender and sleek. Others massive and heavy with age. The walls trembled as the largest among them descended. Ancient and gold as the sun, it landed in the courtyard with a ground shaking. Thud, claws digging furrows into the cobblestones. Its wings folded with a sound like crackling banners. Its head alone was bigger than the orphanage door. Golden scales radiated light even under the dark, stormy sky. And its eyes were the same molten gold Lily had seen behind the bins. Mistress Grill stumbled into the courtyard, skirts clutched in trembling hands, face as pale as milk. The other adults followed, most of them too terrified to speak. Children packed the windows, breath fogging the glass, fingers splayed against the panes. Lily pushed her way to the front, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Great worm, mistress," Grill cried, bowing so low her nose almost touched the muddy ground. "We meant no offense." Whatever transgression, silence. The dragon didn't roar. It didn't need to. Its voice rolled over them, deep and resonant, as if it spoke from inside the bones of the earth. Every window rattled. Every child flinched. Mistress Grill clamped her mouth shut. The dragon's massive head swung toward the building. Its nostrils flared, drawing in the sense of fear and stone and old cabbage and too many children crammed into too small a space. "Where is the child called Lily?" the worm asked. Lily's blood turned to ice. They knew, somehow, some way. They knew about the secret behind the bins. About the stolen dinners, about Ember and Ash. And now, she thought wildly, they had come to punish her, to burn the orphanage down, to take back whatever kindness she had dared to give. "Lily," Mistress Grill rasped, "step forward." Now, every face turned toward her. The room tilted for a moment. Lily thought her legs would refuse to move. Then, because there was nothing else she could do, she walked down the stairs, through the doorway, into the courtyard, where rain had turned the ground to slick mud. And the golden dragon watched her with impossible intensity. She felt very, very small. 200 dragons, maybe more, circled above, their eyes like stars. Wings beat slow and steady, stirring the air into a wild, electric wind. Lily's hair whipped around her face. Her thin shirt clung to her bony shoulders. The great worm lowered its head. One enormous eye filled her world, golden iris ringed with colors she had no names for: deep blues, burning oranges, faint violet sparks. Up close, Lily could see faint scars along the scales. The texture of age and battles survived. "You fed my granddaughter and her brother," the dragon said. Lily's knees threatened to buckle. "For 6 nights," the worm continued, "you gave them your only food. Her throat felt tight. They were hungry, and so were you." The dragon's eye widened slightly, swirling with shifting hues: anger, amusement, gratitude. Lily had no reference for what dragon emotions looked like. She only knew the gaze didn't feel cruel. "A human child with nothing," the worm said slowly, "gave everything to dragon hatchlings. Do you know what this means?" Lily shook her head. Tears slipped down her cheeks without her permission. "It means," the great worm said, voice softening to something almost gentle, "you are kin." A ripple ran through the watching dragon's surprised murmurs, flicks of wings, low rumbles of agreement or curiosity. "My grandcubs imprinted on you," the worm went on. "They have been inconsolable since we retrieved them, crying for their sister." Sister? The word hit Lily like a physical blow. "So the council has decided." Before she could ask decided what, a cry split the air to familiar voices, bright and joyous. From the crowd of dragons above, to smaller shapes dove, spiraling down in a blur of wings and fire-bright scales. They landed in front of her with far more grace than they'd ever shown behind the bins. They had grown, and the scales now shone like polished bronze, each one catching what little light there was. Ashes darker high gleamed like wet stone, streaked with faint silver. Their wings were larger, powerful. Their eyes were exactly the same. Ember barreled into Lily's chest with enough force to knock her backward into the mud. Ash followed a heartbeat later. They covered her face with warm, wet licks, claws scrabbling gently against her shoulders, chirping and trilling so loudly she could barely hear the rain. Lily laughed and sobbed at the same time, wrapping her arms around their necks. The hollow ache inside her shifted, changed, filled with something unfamiliar and bright. "We claim you," the great worm declared. "Lily of no clan. We name you Lily Goldscale, ward to the dragon flights, sister to hatchlings, daughter of the sky." "I'm human," Lily whispered into Ember's scales. It felt important to point that out. I don't belong with dragons." A scarlet dragon dropped from the sky and landed beside them in a rush of hot wind. Her scales flared, then flowed like molten metal, reshaping before Lily's astonished eyes. The dragon's body collapsed inward, limbs twisting, wings folding into nothing. Where the dragon had stood, a woman knelt in the mud. She wore crimson armor that looked like it had been forged from living flame. Her hair a dark torrent down her back. Her eyes, though, were unmistakably dragon bright, sharp, full of fire. "You think family is about species?" the woman asked, voice rich with amusement and steel. "About what you look like?" Lily didn't know what to say. The woman leaned closer, expression fierce and strangely loving all at once. "You protected our young when you had every reason not to," she said. "You sacrificed for them. That makes you one of ours." The great worm's transformation was slower, grander. Golden light rippled along his body as his form condensed. His neck shortened, wings folding in and vanishing, claws shrinking, tail withdrawing in moments. Where an ancient dragon had stood, an old man remained. He wore simple robes the color of sunlight on water, his hair white and long, his skin lined with countless years. But his eyes were the same molten gold as his dragon forms, ancient and watchful. "The orphanage will receive compensation for your care," he said, as if discussing the weather. "Your belongings will be retrieved. From this day forward, you will live among us, learn our ways, want for nothing." "I don't understand," Lily sobbed, clinging to the cubs' hatchlings who refused to leave her side. Ember's tail curled protectively round her waist. Ash planted himself between her and everyone else, a small, stubborn guardian. "I just gave them my bread, exactly." The old man smiled, a slow, warm smile that reached those golden eyes. "Any creature can show kindness when they have plenty. But you, small one, showed it when you had nothing. That is the mark of true nobility." Behind Lily, the orphanage loomed a cold, grey building that had never once felt like home. She realized, with a start, that in 3 years no one there had asked her favorite color. No one had noticed when she woke from nightmares shaking. No one had argued over who got to sit beside her. Here, in 10 minutes, 3 dragons were already bickering over who would teach her to fly first. One by one, dragons landed in the courtyard, scales shimmering, then shifted into human forms tall, short, old, young, all with eyes that held traces of draconic fire. They introduced themselves as aunt, uncle, cousin, teacher, healer. "We'll show you the rookery," one said. "I'll make sure you have proper armor," another added. "I will teach you our language," a third insisted. Ember and Ash pressed closer, their chirps dissolving into happy rumbling purrs. "Welcome home, little sister," they said together, or as close to words as dragon hatchlings could come. Lily didn't understand the language, not really, but she felt the meaning settle into her bones. For the first time since her parents died, she believed in home again. High above, the circling dragons began to peel away in gleaming streams of color, rising toward the clouds. Those still on the ground shifted back into their true forms, wings unfurling, ready to take to the sky. The old dragon offered Lily his hand. Ember and Ash crouched, clearly expecting her to climb onto their backs. Lily took a shaky breath, wiped her face with the back of her sleeve, and nodded. She wasn't sure what waited for her above the clouds. She wasn't sure what it meant to be daughter of the sky. But as Ember and Ash crouched to lift her, as dragons roared in joy, and the ground fell away beneath them, the emptiness inside her finally eased. Below, Mistress Grill watched the dragons depart with her newest charge, the courtyard filling with the thunder of wings and laughter. Lily, small and thin, and clinging to two gleaming hatchlings, vanished into the storm of color overhead. "Well," the matron muttered to herself, smoothing her apron with shaking hands, "that's certainly a first." Behind her, every orphan pressed against the windows, faces full of wonder, eyes reflecting the last glimmers of dragon light in the sky. Later, when they whispered to one another in their narrow beds, some of them would remember how a girl who had nothing had once given away her bread. Some of them would remember the way the dragons called her sister. And some of them would learn, slowly, that kindness doesn't just change your life. Sometimes it teaches the whole world how to fly.